In this episode, I talk with Tatyana Mamut, co founder at Wayfound. We dive into the world of AI agents. What makes them agents and not just automation systems? We also talk about real world use cases and effective ways to deploy AI agents in your business. The real fun part is towards the end, where we talk about the Mahabharata and why that is Tatyana's favorite book. You don't want to miss this. Hey, Tatyana, welcome to the Get in the Mode podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about your career journey and sort of like where you are now and what brought you here.
Yes. So I am the black sheep of my family. And in many cases, when I've been working at very large companies like AWS and Salesforce and other places, I was very valued, but also a little bit of a black sheep. And the reason why is because I've been surrounded by engineers my entire life. My mother's an engineer, my father's an engineer, my grandmother's an engineer, my aunt's an engineer, my brother's an engineer. And I was always much more interested in social systems than in technical systems. And so what that meant was that, I was very familiar with a lot of the conversations around engineering. I felt very comfortable in engineering, kind of environments. But I have a PhD in anthropology and a background in economics. So I have always modeled and thought about the world in terms of how do human societies evolve? Where are we prepared to take on, new tools, new mindsets? When do economic structures shift and why do they shift and how do they intersect with human culture? And I have taken that perspective into all of the companies and all of the jobs that I've had. And so you can imagine that at AWS and Salesforce and Pendo, where I was an executive most recently, those types of things are really different, especially for a technology leader. But they're also really valuable because I was always so different from the people that I was around.
That's kind of a very different background for someone to get into tech. I think I have lots of questions, so we'll kind of dive in. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what AI development are you very excited about?
Well, I think like many of us, in late 2022, when we discovered ChatGPT, we all got very, very excited, and were able to use it, for real. And a lot of us started kind of spinning our wheels and saying, wow, this user experience is going to completely revolutionize how people are going to use software. How interactions between technology systems and humans is going to be. And last year, what we saw was this innovation around really packaging up these LLM brains inside what is called agents. And agents are kind of more autonomous pieces of software that use LLM reasoning and all the capabilities of being able to generate new information, new logic, new understandings of the world, new plans to complete a task in a particular way, and actually creating an agent which has agency, right, which can act on its own behalf. And that innovation and that kind of breakthrough that people started experimenting with last year is absolutely going to be the thing that revolutionizes our economy and our society. And that's why, my co-founder and I founded Wayfound, was because we understand that this technology around AI agents is really set to change everything about how businesses operate, and how people build products. How companies build products is going to be changed forever with AI agents really powering a lot of the experiences that are currently just kind of software interfaces. And how we're going to interact with technology is going to be transformed very significantly.
Yeah, are there some use cases or examples that you can walk through potentially? What would that look like?
Yeah. So the most interesting things that people are doing are around really recrafting their product experiences from the ground up. And I don't mean just the UI. I
Yeah.
mean, what is the real value? Like if you were to step back and say, what is the value that we are providing to our customers and what kind of experience could we provide if we were able to fully personalize the what we're giving them with almost like a human like account manager, service manager doing things for them, as opposed to expecting that everybody navigates through a pretty generic experience, which is how we've had to build technology products in the past. So we're working with some companies that are, they've built an entire company around AI agents. So one customer we have is a kind of, they do market research. And so they're able to personalize and customize market research based on a fleet of AI agents. So their fundamental, product experience is not something that you go in and you click through different things and then you have to compile things on your own based on different, UI experiences like you would in like say a Bloomberg, right? If you were going to try to do market research through a normal platform, you'd have to like navigate a UI and get these different things and kind of then put it together on your own. But right now you can just like with their product, go in, craft a question, then a team of agents wakes up, and does all the work for you. Another customer we're working with, they're a SaaS platform. And what they're thinking about is how do we recraft our core, product experience and put agents in front of customers as opposed to, again, something that they have to click and navigate and do things around in an old-fashioned way. So I think the ones that we're seeing being really leading edge are the ones that are already starting to innovate on customer-facing experiences. A lot of companies, though, start with operational things inside the company. So they start to say, well, how can we, change our customer service offering with AI agents? How can we better answer kind of customer questions with AI agents? How do we do just sort of HR questions and answers and updating HR tools with AI agents? A lot of them start with those internal operational pieces, but where the real transformation is going to come is on the customer facing experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the key there is agency. It's almost like having a coworker next to you, working side by side with you, right?
Yeah. So the main thing to understand is that it's really pretty easy now with the frameworks that are available to just kind of build an agent, right? There are many different frameworks now. There are even no code agent builders. I'm sure some of the big companies will be coming out with more and more and more. The hard part with this whole thing is understanding that this is not software that runs the same way every time. And so the constant monitoring, the supervision, making sure that it stays within the guardrails that you want the agent to perform within, that's actually the much harder piece. We've seen a lot of companies, build agents and then they stall as an experiment and never make it to market, never get deployed in front of customers. And the reason why that is because the business owners need to be able to have full confidence, full control, and for full visibility into what their AI agents are doing. And this is really hard because right now, the people who have access to understanding what the agents are doing are the engineers. They usually have access to all the log files and all the JSON of what the agent is doing. And the business owners are left in the dark.
Yeah.
And so they're left wondering, what is my agent doing? Like, we've all heard of the, I believe it was Air Canada, right? Where their AI agent offered a refund to somebody that they shouldn't have.
Right.
And they only found out like weeks later. And then they tried to get the money back from the customer. And it turned into a huge mess and a lawsuit that they ultimately lost. That happened because the business owner didn't get an alert as soon as that refund happened. So imagine how
Yeah.
different it would be if as soon as that refund was issued, the business owner, like the vice president of customer service for Air Canada, got an alert that said, "Hey, this agent went off the rails. It issued a refund outside of the guidelines that you set." And then they immediately got back to that customer and said, "Sorry." 5 minutes later, like, "Sorry, the agent, issued a refund that it shouldn't have." And with that level of clarity, that actually is the thing that most businesses and most teams right now don't have, because it is totally different than what we had to do with old world software.
Yeah. Well, I think my take on that particular example of Air Canada is honestly, what's the big deal? Like, what really happens is what we learn from it and what the agent learned from it. We think about a coworker, like a customer service agent who might have made the same mistake. What would we really do? I mean, granted, Air Canada might have fired that person, but at the same time, if it was a smaller company, mistakes do happen. It's almost like for us to innovate in this space, we need to allow for agents to fail. And I think what is more important is sort of like how much can they fail? Like, almost like making it more like a micro agent rather than giving it big responsibilities. Fortunately, it was just a ticket rather than, just booking the whole flight, chartering it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that might have been a different. I don't know. That's what are your thoughts on something like that, like allowing for failures of these agents?
Yeah, we have to really grapple with the fact, this is what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
we have to grapple with the fact that there is no way to make this, just like what you bring up, there's no way to make humans 100% reliable and
Right.
100% do what you want the same way 100% of the
Right.
time. And this technology is more like human brains than it is like old school pre-programmed software.
Yeah.
So that people really need to grapple with.
Yeah.
And that is why, when you do build one of these agents, you need to have the systems to
Yeah.
know what they do and to be able to make sure that the monitoring is happening. So in the case, right, where you are worried, like, say, for example, they wanted to establish that, it was not their fault, right? If the AI agent said something. Now, you're right. In this particular case, it wasn't a big deal, but they were probably thinking about cases that may have been a bigger deal, right? Like the agent accidentally refunded the customer $10 million, dollars, right? In those cases, right, what do? How do you make sure that you still establish a great customer experience, but that you're, but if there are problems, that there's a
Yeah.
mitigation plan or there's a
Yeah.
risk assessment plan.
Yeah.
In the case of something like that, again, if you have Wayfound, what you could do is that you can say, we'll issue the refund, for example. Right after that, it goes into, as soon as the session, kind of is sent into Wayfound, our AI agent manager reads every recording and establishes whether that agent behaved in accordance to the guardrails and the guidelines that you have established in the system. That seems okay on the consumer. So it's not a much worse consumer experience. If you have to wait a month for your refund, that's a terrible customer experience, right? So you don't want to do that. But you want to have something where you can thread that line between having some check on what the agent might have done wrong and still providing a fantastic customer experience.
Going beyond agents, just with AI in general, what do you think we are getting right? What do you think we could change and improve?
Well, certainly, I think what we're very excited about, and maybe this is where we say we're getting it right, is that the capabilities are just moving at incredible breakneck speed. The researchers at OpenAI and Anthropic and Google are making leaps and bounds of progress every week, essentially. And I'm sure there's a lot more going on there than we even know about. Where there is a lot of need, and I'm not the only one to say this, is to ensure that we have good alignment mechanisms. And you can think about alignment as the guardrails for our organizations and then for our cultures to make sure that AI agents are truly acting in accordance with what we value, as opposed to making inferences based on incomplete information that may lead to better outcomes on paper but aren't actually aligned with our values. So we still have a lot of work to do to ensure that they're not just goal maximizing in a particular narrow framework, but that they're actually aligned with our larger cultures. And one of the reasons that we have created our product the way that we have is we help organizations align their AI agents with their company values, because all of human alignment, which I think is the ultimate holy grail of this alignment problem, that's very hard to do, right? Just getting humans to agree on an alignment framework is very hard to do. But organizations can agree on their alignment framework because they have company values, they have brand guidelines, they have those types of things already established. So we can align the AI agents from the bottom up.
What is one essential piece of advice that you would give to someone who's wanting to drive innovation in this space?
The number one piece of advice is that if you are the business owner, make sure that you're not delegating the success of your AI agent to someone else, right? You are ultimately responsible, because you can think about it as being the hiring manager to deliver great experiences to the people that you're innovating for and innovating on behalf of. So you are creating and you are hiring a new capability, a new type of AI worker, right? A digital worker to deliver amazing experiences to whoever you're serving. So you need to make sure that you are managing them. You wouldn't hire someone for your team and then delegate the management to someone else, right? So make sure you're not delegating the management and the performance reviews and understanding how to give feedback to this new person that you're bringing in, this new AI person that you're bringing in. Make sure that you really understand what they're doing and that you have full, immediate, and instant visibility, and that you are the front line in what they're doing, not someone else.
Awesome. You mentioned your favorite book in the last 3 years was the Mahabharata.
That's right. Have you read it?
Well, I've not read it.
It's very hard
By
to
the way,
read.
there's a podcast on Spotify called the Mahabharata, and it's got like I think 100 episodes or something like that. So you could just listen to the stories while you're driving or whatever.
Right.
That's what I've been doing. I mean, there are so many stories, but
So
I
many.
mean, maybe for the listeners, we'll just kind of fundamentally share that story, right? Like, it's the story. It's an epic from India, and the story is between, five brothers. This king had two wives, and five brothers from the first wife, who are kind of the official heirs to the throne, and then there's 100 kids from the
Right.
second who are not the official heirs to the throne, and it's a war between the heirs, the official heirs to the throne, because the 100 brothers cheat the five and then
Right.
make them go into exile.
Well,
It's a
they don't.
war between the two, the
Yeah.
Pandavas and
So
the Kauravas.
that's right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna add a little bit thing. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
the reason that this has affected me so much is because I think it's the most amazing book that's been written about leadership. And
Sure.
the reason why is because, I mean, yes, the Hundred Brothers trick, Yudhisthira, right?
Yeah.
Who
The five,
is
the
the leader.
Pandavas. Yeah.
Yeah. But he is the king, right? Of the
Yes,
five
that's
brothers,
right.
he
He's the
becomes the
eldest.
king.
Yeah, that's right.
And they do trick him, but really he makes a lot of mistakes. Like it is
Yeah.
his mistakes that really put them into exile. So yes, they set a trap for him, but he
Yes.
took the trap.
You
because
mean he kept playing that game, the game
yes,
of dice?
yes,
He
he
was
doubled
kind of
down with bad decision making, right? He was just like, I'm going to win. I know I'm good at this. And he just doubled down and then he tripled
got it.
down and then he
Okay.
bet
So he
everything and
just
then he
got
bet his
carried
wife
away
and then he bet his
in
kingdom and then he bet his brothers and then he
fair
like,
enough.
it's just like,
Okay,
and he
got it.
just doubled down with bad decisions,
Sure.
bad decisions. And so, so leadership,
Okay.
what is this? So I read, you can read the Mahabharata in many different ways,
Of
of
course.
course, of course. I read it as a lesson for leaders and CEOs.
Okay.
And the reason I read it that way is because one, you need to really know
Hmm.
where are your weak spots? Where can people take advantage of
Hmm.
you and what you're trying to do? You need to
Hmm.
understand when you're doubling down on bad decisions because of your ego or because you this is your view of the world or because you are certain that in the past you've always been right about this.
Yeah.
And then even if you make the worst decisions, I mean, those decisions were terrible. Can be just,
Yeah.
like they were just like the worst. It was like meant to be epically bad decisions, right? Was the
Sure.
story, but he was still an amazing ruler at the end,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he still was able to climb out of those terrible decisions
Yeah.
and do a lot of self-reflection in exile. He had these revelations with this crane while he was in exile. I love that scene where the crane asks him questions, and again, everything is on the line. And through deep introspection into himself,
Hmm.
he is able to answer these questions, save his family, ultimately fight an epic battle in war, and then
Yeah.
kind of and then he rises and then at the end he rises to the pinnacle of power and respect
Right.
and glory, and what does he do? He leaves it all to
Lives.
go
Yeah.
live in the mountains as a beggar. I just as a leader, like, to me this is like the ultimate leadership experience that I can
Yeah.
reflect on and
Yeah.
just read those scenes, because the book is just too long to read every scenes of leadership around leadership,
Yeah.
and reflect on what this means to be a leader today, right?
Yeah.
And what are the common pitfalls? Because we're all human. Being a CEO of a tech company is no different than, being a leader, in
Hmm.
ancient India, apparently. So that's truly inspirational to me.
Yeah. 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 No, that's excellent points all around. There are so many. I mean, it's kind of like the Greek mythology. You can pick up, like, you read that story and then you pick up so many different threads. It's the same thing with this epic too. So I think we should recommend our listeners to check it out. Now we've provoked some curiosity.
So what everybody knows is the Bhagavad
Yeah.
Gita, right? Which is just one small section
Of course.
of the
Yes.
Mahabharata, right? So, like, most people have heard of the Bhagavad Gita. By the
Yeah.
way, it's often misquoted, but again, I won't get into that right now. But the larger epic
Yes.
is really contextualizes the Bhagavad Gita and
That's
is
right.
just so much richer than just the Bhagavad Gita. So
And
just to
even
put
like
that out
the
there for your listeners.
no, that is super cool. You mentioned that too, like, because Bhagavad Gita is just, as they say, it's the scripture for the Hindu religion, but it's sort of like a small piece within this massive epic story. And I mean, it's basically, Arjun, the charioteer of, is it Arjun? No,
Yeah,
Krishna.
Arjuna, yeah.
Krishna, the charioteer of Arjun, one of the Pandavas, he's kind of talking about, like, hey, why you should fight this war, because he's kind of got this dilemma, like, how can I kill my own brothers, kind of thing. And it's
Right,
it's sort of
cousins.
like the justice.
Cousins, right, yeah.
Cousins, yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's sort of like this justice and all of that, the talk about all of that. So which
Right,
it's fascinating.
right.
Yeah, glad you mentioned that, like, the context of Bhagavad Gita. So
Yeah.
Tatyana, it's been a pleasure having you on the Get in the Mode podcast. Yeah, looking forward to hearing from your progress. Where can folks find you if they want to reach out?
Come to our website, wayfound.ai. Check out our contents, learn more about AI agent management, especially if you're a business owner or product leader, or you're an engineer that doesn't want to generate a lot of reports for your business owner and product leaders. You want to just focus on innovation. And then if it resonates and you're building an AI agent, click get a demo.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the podcast. What I want to talk about is a key point that was discussed in the podcast, that AI agents have agency. What we mean by agency is what I'm going to share on my screen. If you're looking at it on YouTube, you can actually see the video. I'm going to share my screen and show you what actually gives something, a machine or anything, agency. It is, number one, planning, the ability to break down a complex objective or an assignment into a sequence of steps. Number two, reasoning, which is discernment of a particular path, of a specific path from a set of options that is available to you. Number three, interaction, which is in the real world, you're interacting with other agents and use tools to accomplish a particular task. Finally, this is all reinforced by learning, where you look at the results of your actions and make adjustments that is needed to accomplish the task. This is what agency means. What gives us agency, and this is an insight that we learn from the tradition of psychoanalysis, is language. And that is precisely what we use to interact with AI systems. It is language, which is what is a feature of large language models. Now, it doesn't mean that machines understand language just like we do, but we are able to interact with them with language. That's what it means. So, because of this, AI agents have agency. Now, when you have agency, what that means is you can allow that person who has agency to make certain micro decisions. And that is precisely what Tatyana talked about in the podcast, in the episode about guardrails. Because it has agency, you can actually say, hey, work within this guardrails to perform your task and take decisions on my behalf. And perhaps if that boundary is clearly defined, that agent can take decisions within that set of boundaries. What sort of benefit and gain do we get from something like this? There are multiple things that we can gain from this. There's things such that we perhaps value as decision fatigue. When you delegate something to someone, you're not giving them every specific instruction on how to do their task or their job. You're literally giving them the freedom and the autonomy to take decisions. And when they make a mistake, you even allow for those mistakes. And because you've given the guardrails, they're not making catastrophic mistakes, but they're making mistakes that are within that boundary, and you can teach them, and they learn from it. And that's precisely what AI agents are capable, where we are going with AI agents. Now, if you think about AI agents more as an automation system, the problem is you're going to be limiting their capability. Think about the Generation 1 automation systems that we have in the market today, MuleSoft, Camunda, even N8N, Make.com's N8N orchestration. I think N8N would be more a crossover orchestration, like Zapier and all these orchestration automation systems where they follow a more flowchart type approach. All the conditions are predetermined, errors and exceptions are handled. If new errors occur, you handle them. So that's really what a predetermined Generation 1 automation system looks like. A Generation 2 AI agent would have the capability to take micro decisions. They would have the capability to reason, which is take a specific path that you have not predetermined, but they figure out on their own how to break down the task and then be able to take that specific path to accomplish that final goal. And finally, they're within the ecosystem, they're able to discover other agents, interact with them through APIs or whatever mechanisms, use tools that may be needed to accomplish that task. So, those are the three key tenets of AI agents. Again, all of this has to be reinforced by learning, and that's where evaluation tools and learning systems will have to come in. I think we are sort of weak in that area at the moment. That's an area where AI agents will have to beef up and address that particular challenge, which is evident in that Air Canada example that Tatyana gave during the episode about wrongly reimbursing someone with a ticket. But the important thing is learning how did that happen so that it doesn't happen again, putting those guardrails, evaluating and making adjustments. Again, thanks for watching this episode. Hopefully, you learned a lot of cool things about AI agents. We hope you subscribe and continue to listen to our Get in the Mode podcast. Thanks for watching.